Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Quast. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Swift Transportation.
Hi, I'm Jim Fitzsimmons, Executive Vice President of Operations.
So our intent today is to update you on the coronavirus issue and things we're doing here at Swift, and primarily to answer some questions that were submitted by some of our driving associates and owner-operators, and hopefully address some concerns and then make a comment on maybe on a couple of areas. So we're just going to go through a question at a time, and we'll read the name of the individual and the question, then we'll answer the question. So Jim, you want to kick us off?
Yep, so these are questions we've got mostly back from Facebook. And let me just kind of start off by saying we've been trying our best to probably over-communicate. I mean, I've getting a lot of grief for all these videos we're doing, and I think you or myself enjoy doing these videos, but hey, we're doing it to try to keep our drivers informed of what's going on, keep our employees informed of what's going on out there. So just keep that in mind. We've been using these videos as kind of the avenue to get that out there. I think we probably have drivers that aren't aware that these videos are on the communication page, and that's probably where some of this feedback's coming. We'll do a better job of possibly communicating through the Qualcomm every time we do one of these videos, so that the driver that doesn't check it on a daily basis or regular basis will be aware. But hey, our goal is not to put our head in the sand and not address what's going on out there. We're trying to communicate and deal with anything that needs to be dealt with at the time.
And provide, Jim, an avenue for people who maybe don't have the technology to be able to watch the video, provide an avenue in one of our terminals, right? So we always have monitors and places in our terminals you can go to watch video. So if you see the message on the Qualcomm, then feel free to hit a terminal and you can get up to date if you need to.
Yep, definitely would encourage you to do that. So here's the first question. This came from Jameson. Why is it that we have received little to no outreach from Phoenix, and that which we have is in a format we can't access while driving? Now, my hair kind of stands up when I read that for the second part, because we don't want you watching a video or reading something while you're driving. Maybe he meant while sitting in the truck, between driving. But obviously, if we are putting these videos out, and some of these will be on YouTube, first step, we don't want you distracted going down the road. Let me just hit that first. But again, like I already touched on, we're going to continue to try to over-communicate. I think we decided this morning we're going to do this about 3 times a week for now, and we'll decrease that once we get this kind of behind us. But we'll do a better job of also communicating via the Qualcomm, and maybe it makes sense even to put some literature within the terminals where they could pick something up and read it. Keep in mind, this thing's evolving fast, and so what we say today might not be relevant tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, and I think that's what Jameson meant relative to driving, right? He's something that he could use while driving, and we just don't want to create any distractions. So we'll continue to do this, and then make sure you get something via Qualcomm. Next question is from Michelle R. If a driver does get sick with coronavirus while out on the road and away from home, how will Swift help the driver, or will they be on their own? And then a follow-up question to that, if the closures and curfews get worse and start to affect us drivers, will we be able to be routed home and be able to wait this out at home until things get back to normal? Those are great questions, Michelle. And first of all, what I want to make sure is that you have our commitment to anybody who gets ill, that we are going to take care of you. Jim and I were both on a group that's combined between Knight and Swift, and worked through this yesterday to make sure that we're going to pay our employees who are ill while they're during the quarantine period. You won't be charged PTO, won't be charged sick time, and we're going to pay during that time. So we're close with terminal leaders, and hey, we want you to be healthy, most importantly. But if something were to happen, we'd take care of you. If closures got worse, we're just gonna have to deal with that if it gets to there, and work on getting people home. And hey, I would be really surprised if it got to that point, because remember, this is the supply chain of America. The work that you are all doing keeps this country healthy and strong. And frankly, I just can't imagine a scenario where a curfew would be instituted that said a driver can't drive a truck.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind is in transportation, we're considered essential services.
Right.
And so even if it gets to that level, you still have to get the product flowing to the shelves.
Trucks will still roll.
Exactly. So just keep that in mind, that, and this is the kind of stuff, as it happens, or if it happens, we'll deal with that. We don't want to set policies or procedures in place for something that might not ever happen. But if that happens, we'll make sure we're communicating that.
Yep, and we'll work through taking care of everybody. Jeremiah G. asks, are we going to start getting testing at our Swift clinics? I'm assuming, Jeremiah, that you're referring to COVID-19 testing. You know, the supply of test kits are so limited and so controlled that I think it's unlikely we get access to that at clinics. In other words, in most places, you can't walk into a doctor's office and get a test that's controlled by the county health officials just to maintain the supply where it is needed. So I doubt that ever happens at our clinics. But we are, if a driver gets sick, we're helping to facilitate getting to places where they need to be tested if that becomes necessary. So probably not at our clinics.
Right. Okay, next question. This is from 3 different individuals: Gordon, Brianna, Clayton. There's a few quotes here, and so let me just kind of read through these and I'll come back and answer. So the first one is around sick and leave pay if quarantined or a mandatory shutdown. I think you kind of already hit on that, but our goal is if you're forced to shut down or quarantine, we are going to take care of you. So that's the simple message I would give you, and we've already had these conversations. But we are going to take care of our employees if that happens to you, and our owners too. We've talked about, we've had a couple examples where an owner has had to self quarantine, and we're taking care of those owners as well. So here's some of the questions: if we are shut down, if a shipper closes, will we get paid a flat pay? I can't really talk through specifics on what we'll pay, but we're going to make sure if you're forced to shut down again, we're going to take care of you. And I think we've talked about using like an average pay. And so, it's not going to be some very nominal amount. This will be something more similar to what you're used to making, to make sure that you can make your car payment, your water payment, your mortgage. So we're going to make sure that we take care of you in this time. Next part of this question is, are we, a lot of these are kind of duplicates. So let me just kind of scan through here and see what I haven't already answered. Here's one here, Kevin. So this driver doesn't have a home, so he solely uses the truck as his home. And so the question is, what if he is quarantined and he's forced to shut down? So, I mean, we haven't talked through this, but my vote would be, hey, that's your home. We're going to let you self quarantine in that truck. Yeah. Now that's going to be one where we probably need to have you stay close to your driver leader and your terminal leader, because obviously we don't want you self-quarantining at a Swift building and then coming into the lounge every day, because then you're violating the self-quarantine. So that would be an example. We're just going to have to kind of work through on the one-offs to figure out, what are you going to do for a shower? What are you going to do for food? But again, hey, we've got 30 terminals nationwide. Knight's got 26 terminals. We've got people that can help you if needed. So if we need to drop supplies off at your truck, whatever it might be, those are the kind of exceptions we'll work through as they happen.
Okay, Daniel H. asks, how are we supposed to eat when restaurant and drive-through only? Cannot run to grocery store, hope can find whatever we can. So, yeah, this is the reality of what we're dealing with out there. I know you are. Now, what I think we're seeing in Phoenix and in most communities is that not only drive-through, but you can do takeout at many restaurants. So places you may have been able to go in before to a dining room, can't do that, but you can do takeout. They're allowing people to do that. We're also working to make more things available in our terminals and some things like that we'll give you more information on a future video. But we will, we'll support you with that. Maybe you want to touch base, Jim, about the mini marts.
Yeah. So a couple things. So we're working on doing a few things. Which one of those is providing provisions at Swift terminals. And so I just hung up with the guys over at Night. We're also working with Bar None and Abilene, trying to work with our customers, where we're actually going to go out and secure food and water. And so, like, we've already got 22 loads of water secured. And so we're going to get those delivered to Swift terminals, and we'll divvy it up from there. So Night will get some, Abilene, Bar None.
Yeah.
But what the goal here is to make sure that you are getting the product and the food that you need. And our goal is going to be, if we could get that into a Swift building, that makes your job that much easier without having to, go fight the crowds and go balance store to store to store trying to find this product. Now, keep in mind, it's not easy to find. So we're doing our best, and we're going to do this as quickly as we can, but that's not going to happen overnight. But the goal is by the end of next week, is you should start seeing supplies at various terminals as you come through, and we'll communicate as that happens. One more thing I wanted to hit on is that I think there's been a lot of misinterpretation of the truck stops communicating about their lounges closing. That doesn't mean that the showers or the food are closing.
Right.
They're really talking about trying to keep people from gathering, hanging out in one spot. So when they talk about lounges, they're referring to where you would, kick back and watch TV, that type of stuff. And we'll be looking at doing the same type of precautionary measures at Swift as well. Now, in regards to the mini mart, we've got 15 Swift facilities where you've got the open concept market at those buildings. We've decided yesterday Swift's going to start subsidizing 50% of the cost for all food product. And I don't have an effective date, so I guess I'll just tell everyone it's got to start Monday. I guess we do it tomorrow or, as quick as we can. But the goal here is to, have food available for you drivers out there. And if we've got it in the building, that's the easiest place to get it. And so starting here either tomorrow or Monday, depending when we could get our vendor to turn that on, all those food products will be at a 50% discount for all of you drivers.
I think we could mention too, Jim, as part of this, we, with our companies, with Swift, Knight, Abilene, and Bar None, we run independently. We deal with different customers. We hire drivers differently, and we stay in our own yards and all those kind of things. Well, with this situation, we are going to have much more flexibility of allowing people to park on yards. So if a Knight driver needs to be on a Swift yard because there's no other Knight terminal in that town, in that city, then we're going to allow for that, and vice versa. And same for Bar None and Abilene. Now we're working through this because the Knight facilities are all badge access in and out, and there's not a guard. And so we've got a couple of technical things to work through where we're going to have a phone call probably for you to call. So for example, if you're in Nashville, Tennessee, need a place to stay, we don't have a Swift facility there. You could go to the facility, to the Knight facility, pick up or call, pick up your phone, call a number, and that gate will be open for you to be able to get in and then to get back out. And so we just want to have that kind of flexibility right now during this difficult time. Next question from Chris D. Will this impact owners differently? If the rigs are forced to stop or freight slows way down, how will this affect us owner-operators? Chris, what I would tell you is that everything we're talking about applies to owners and company drivers. We're going to work through this with you. And hey, hopefully this thing doesn't get to where it slows us all down. And again, since we're essential services, Jim, I think that we probably we wouldn't see a stoppage, but if things slow down, we're going to work through that. And so we with owners, we'll look at particularly if you have a lease with us, truck payments or whatever it might be. I don't know what that would be, but we're gonna support you, Chris, and all of our owner operators, because you're just as important to us as company drivers are, obviously. Jim, you want to take the next one?
Next question comes from Michael P. He asked the question. He must be in a dedicated because he slip seats his truck. And so the question is there a more sanitary way of doing that? Yeah. So here's what I'd tell you. If we have extra trucks at a location, then this might be a great time that we don't have drivers slip seat. Now, in a lot of locations, if we got, 50 trucks and we got, 30, or let me say that again. If we got 30 trucks and 50 drivers, we're going to have to slip seat. Now, if we got the extra trucks, then, hey, this is a great time. We might not need to slip seat those units. If you are slip seating, I would tell you it's no different than if you go to a grocery store and you're slip seating a grocery cart at that point. So, take the Clorox wipe everything down. If you're in a truck, I would, wipe down the steering wheel, the windshield, controls, the shifter, anything that's kind of what you consider a high touch point. Really wipe that with a Clorox wipe, and then you're good to go. This virus cannot be transmitted through the air, and so unless Kevin was to sneeze on me right now, that would be the only way you could transmit it through the air, and I hope you don't do that. But
right.
Other than that, it's not like if a driver was in that truck 4 hours earlier and had the virus and didn't know it, you're not going to contract that through the air just by being in that truck. So again, it's all about surfaces and washing your hands and wiping those surfaces to keep the germ-free.
Okay, Caroline D. and Gerald M. both have asked these type of questions about refusing freight due to coronavirus. So the question: delivery of food and supplies will likely get very physically dangerous in many areas, locales, if this situation becomes a prolonged event. There are already drivers being held up or attacked, swarmed by crowds at major grocery store locations like Costco. Can we refuse freight that we feel our physical safety is at risk delivering to certain locations, or there is knowledge of drivers being assaulted or hijacked, etc.? Great question. We've actually had a few reports of that this week earlier on with a few of our retailers that we deliver to at the stores, where people have wanted to meet the truck in the back and And so we are first thing we
And just to
call-
clarify, we haven't had any assaults or
Right,
hijacking.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Very good point. They're just people that were in that area, and so so we immediately called the retailer, said, hey, you've got to have somebody back there to help guide that truck back in and make sure that there's not people back there in the back of the store. And so, we'll monitor this obviously really closely. And if you see something, gosh, by all means, please report that to us. But we'll monitor it closely and make sure that this, doesn't get out of control. And I think this panic buying thing is going to be, is going to work through here in the next week or two. Is what we kind of anticipate. What we think. I know the grocery stores that my wife goes to at least is, are starting to be a little more stocked now. And somebody else this morning told me they stopped at a grocery store and it was much more stocked. So I think it's starting to wane a little bit. But absolutely we'll be very careful about that. Next question: if we get loads to Pennsylvania and we know all rest stops, parking areas, and travel plazas are closed, then that limits parking and reset areas for the drivers. Knowing this, it becomes even harder to drive legally in that state. And then just there's no benefit to drivers because of risk of DOT violations. Well, a very valid point. So I'd imagine everybody was aware that PA had shut down all of their rest areas. We got directly involved with DOT, FMCSA, TSA, various organizations, and we're putting a lot of pressure, us and others. And they then in turn put pressure on the state of Pennsylvania. And as of this morning, they have 13 of the rest areas open up again, and they were the rest areas where there's the most commercial traffic, trucks in other words, and they may open up some more according to what I read yesterday afternoon. So we take a very aggressive position in working through, and because of our size and connections that we have in the government, we can leverage that, and so we take a very aggressive stance in working on those kind of things. And I think we'll see progress. And I think this is frankly, I think it was a good learning experience for everybody in the country because of a state that did that, and I think other states saw it, and now they're opening up again. And I think that's going to say, hey, gosh, we can't do that because we're essential services. We got to take care of trucks. So we'll continue to work on that. And then the question: if a driver refuses to load because of coronavirus risk or a DOT violation risk because of the coronavirus, will this be held against the driver? Well, the short answer is no. It would not be held against you, but I can't really think of a situation today where there would be a risk because of coronavirus or a DOT violation risk based upon what we know at this point. And again, it's an evolving situation, but I think we're safe to do our work, and we're going to have some more written communication coming out on that as well. Jim, do you want to hit the next one?
Yep. So the last question we have here is from Dave N. If other states follow the Pennsylvania, what they've done there, and obviously Kevin just addressed that, but if they continue to close rest areas and travel plazas, and we can't find parking at the truck stop because of the madness, are we going to be able to park on the side of the off ramp or on ramp until this is over? Here's what I would tell you: that don't ever park on the side of the road. I mean, regardless of what's happening, we would rather have you, if you get into that situation, pick up the phone or send us a message to let us know. And if it gets to the point where you're going to have to run over hours to find a secure and safe place to shut that truck down, we're going to allow you to do that. And there's some exemptions that are very one-off that we'll make as we need to. And we're not going to do a policy or blanket-wide deal on this, but we will make exceptions to allow you to be in a safe place when you shut down. But being on the side of the road or the side of a on-ramp or off-ramp is absolutely not a safe place to be. So
Right.
we definitely don't want you shutting down there, not only for your own personal safety, but for the motoring public, because we see it all the time when a driver pulls over for something. It's just amazing to me how often we are rear-ended.
Yep. Great point, Jim. And so, just remember, safety is always has to be your first focus. I know you know that, but we want to continue to emphasize that. And hey, we're going to support you through all of that. Really, that's all the questions. One last thing I thought we'd touch on is DMV offices. You've probably heard of many of them closing. Some of you might be in a position where your license is about to expire and your state has closed down all the DMV offices. We will allow you to continue to operate even if that's expired. And FMCSA, we're anticipating any day now to officially authorize that. And so, but if your DMV offices are shut down in your state, we're not going to we're not going to stop you from doing that. Now, make sure your physical is still current and those kind of things. We'll work through what we need to do as far as those things go. But I expect that really the FMCSA will get that dealt with, so we can continue. So hey, I hope this has been helpful. We intend to continue to update like this. Please continue to submit your questions. Look for information on Qualcomm on how to do that, and we'll continue to do that. We appreciate all of you. The work that you're doing is so critical, Jim. Isn't it what our
Absolutely.
drivers are doing?
And do us a favor. If you're someplace, you're at a Swift building or at a customer or wherever, and you hear another Swift driver saying, "Hey, Phoenix isn't doing anything to let us know what's going on with this." Do us a favor and make sure you're letting them know, "Hey, here's the avenue of how you see these videos." And where you get the information. So I would appreciate that.
Yeah, that would be great, and we'll continue to update you. Just be safe, and I hope that your families are well, and that everybody's doing okay. And hey, we're providing an essential service for our country right now that is greatly needed. And hey, you're doing great work. We appreciate all of you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.